think it really helps to have somebody in your corner, to have a teammate that you can rely on.
If we open ourselves, we can understand each other, and now we can tackle life together.
Remember, when you ask for help, it's not just about you, right? When you ask for help, you're enabling and empowering all those people around you, your teammates, your colleagues, the people that work for you, to do the same.
Welcome to the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast. This week, we spotlight the power of community in accelerating both personal and collective healing. From peer-led support groups to unlikely friendships, discover how connecting with others can foster motivation, accountability, and hope. Perfect for those looking to combat isolation, this episode explores real stories of veterans, first responders, and civilians who found renewed purpose by joining forces with like-minded peers to tackle mental health challenges and life transitions. Let's start with the transformative power of peer support. Jeremy Huey shared how a peer counseling group in a remote area changed not only his life, but the lives of many others. Here's what he had to say.
One thing that we do allow the veterans to do when they do come to the meetings is we let them speak freely. We don't want them to come in feeling like we're going to restrict them from how they speak. They're allowed to curse, they're allowed to talk loud and be as expressive as they can. The only thing that we ask is that they don't talk over the other person that's, talking at the time. That's just one thing that we kind of do bring up to them. And just like he was saying, our biggest thing our biggest goal that we're really trying to get to is having, the younger generation coming in, and we want them to, be able to help because, we want them to be able to get the help because we see that a lot of younger generation military veterans struggle the most. Because one thing that we talk about too is that the older generation is, they've been here a lot longer. They've obviously learned how to cope and do that. And we want them to come in to talk to the younger generation too, to show them and prove to them that there is hope. There is a way to live life while you're suffering with this, internal demon that we have, that we fight every single day, and to let them know that they're not in this battle alone. They're not fighting by themselves, that they have us just like we had in combat. We had our battle buddies, we had our teams, we had our squads, we had people that we can look to help us whenever danger came around. And that's what we want to show the veterans here is that, hey, you're not alone. You got us. We'll never let you fight alone.
Jeremy's story shows us that connection doesn't have to come from big cities or large organizations. Sometimes the most meaningful support comes from those right next to us, sharing their stories and listening to ours. For some, finding a community means seeking out those who've walked a similar path. Bruno Moya introduced us to Merging Vets and Players, a group that combines veterans and former professional athletes to help each other transition to civilian life. Let's listen to his perspective.
I think this is part of the crux of everything is finding a healing path, maybe some type of treatment, whatever that is, whether it's medication, therapy, all of that stuff, but then also finding a community that you feel safe and that you can call upon whenever you are in some type of crisis. And physical fitness is part of one of our pillars, right? And so what Merging Vets and Players does is our mission is to combine combat veterans with former professional athletes through physical fitness in a peer-to-peer program. What that means is that every week, once a week, and we have 8 different chapters across the United States, but in Las Vegas, every Friday at 5:00 over at Extreme Couture. I don't know if you know who Randy Couture is. The 6-time heavyweight champion, Army vet, total badass, golden human. He's awesome. He's
beautiful spirit.
Beautiful spirit. And so we train over at his gym, but we do 1 hour physical fitness. And that within that physical fitness, it could be anywhere from circuit training to bag work, to breath work, to yoga, different types of modalities. It's not just beating up the body, but it's also learning how to properly breathe. Those deep, heavy breathing exercises where you're able to oxygenate the body and learn how to do it properly and get into a state of mind that's going to actually relax you. Yoga poses, all of that stuff. With world class coaches. We have a handful of coaches there at Extreme Couture that are our coaches. Not only our coaches, but also our members. That take our members through some rigorous training. And it's not boot camp, so you don't have to. There's nobody behind you knife handing you, making sure that you're not doing a push up right one. No, there's none of that. And we just encourage everybody to do their best. We know that some people have injuries, and we help them, with other modalities. Then after that, we do a 1 hour huddle, which is a peer to peer group. And that huddle is where really a lot of the magic happens. So now we sweat the first hour. The second hour, we get together in our gym. We have an octagon because it's an MMA gym, and so we get together in this octagon, and it's what we call it is the Knights of the Round Table, where nobody's in charge, everybody's in charge of themselves, and we're there together, and we're gonna battle this battle called life together. And the way we start is by really strategizing on who we are, what we have to work on, the things that are bothering us, whether they're good things, whether they're bad things, whatever the case is. And it's just an hour of just rawness of people knowing that they can let something out. And it's not clinical based, so it's not like something that you're going to see at the VA clinic or anything like that. And those things serve a purpose, but our purpose is a little bit different. It's getting together with people that are struggling and are able to safely let it out. And then also we provide resources for anybody that may need some resources after that as well. So that's MVP in a nutshell. But one of the biggest things about MVP that I've learned, because in 2017 when MVP first opened up in Las Vegas, they told me that we were going to do some workouts with athletes. I was like, what are athletes doing in combat veteran space? Like, what are they struggling with, And I remember having that, again, I was very, very dumb guy, having that thought. And I was sitting down at the huddle. At that time, we called it the fireside chat. And Ryan Leaf was a former NFL player, was sitting in the huddle, and he talked about his homecoming from leaving the sport, and his addiction problems with alcohol, and then leading to other pain medications that just led to other things, and how much that affected him. And at that moment, hearing Ryan Leaf talk about his transition really opened up another door for me to understand, like, well, we have combat veterans that suffer from all of this. We have former athletes that suffer. And if we open ourselves, we can understand each other, and now we can tackle life together.
While Bruno's story showcases community through shared struggles, Jay McGinnis brings us another powerful example, building camaraderie through a shared passion. Jay is part of the Valhalla Sailing Project, which connects veterans through the joy and discipline of sailing. Here's how it's making waves in their lives.
2010, and I was, on the one hand, I was doing things that were very good and very healthy to me and for me. And on the other hand, I was doing a lot of stuff that was just terribly destructive. I live in Annapolis. It is, Newport, Rhode Island will argue that they are, but we will say that we are the sailing capital of the world, right? So Newport and Annapolis got this little, So I have always wanted to learn how to sail, but had never really followed up on it. And so I took a lesson actually in Newport. I was up there for a whole other reason and had some free time that I wasn't anticipating. And so I signed up for a sailing lesson on a type of boat called a J24. got my basic keelboat certification from them, came back, was in my apartment, was walking down the street right past the Annapolis Yacht Club. And I'm like, oh, that's a J24 now that I know what one looks like, right? That's the kind of boat that I just learned how to sail on. And it had a for sale sign on it. And so I literally picked up the cell phone, called the guy from the sidewalk and said, how much you want for your boat? He threw me a dollar amount. I wrote him a check and I sailed a boat away the next day. And so, and it wasn't expensive. I mean, it was what we would spend, on a used motorcycle. It was not an expensive purchase at all. But that's how I got into sailing. And then through that, I started crewing on larger boats, and I crewed with a guy named Mike Wood, former Marine. And we were crewing together on a guy named Dave Moss's boat, a style of boat called a J30, much bigger boat. And, we had a really good time. And I found that new sense of community. I found a sense of belonging. I found an activity that hit all of those things for me. Because I would take my boat out by myself, going in the throes of divorce number 2, out on the Chesapeake Bay. And I'm telling you, I would cry, I'd scream, I'd shout, I'd laugh. But it was just me and the boat and the bay and the breeze. And it was therapeutic for me. And then when I was racing, I was with a crew. And so now I've got that team feeling again, right? Oh, we are the boat. And that's a Navy thing, right? You are the boat. But we're the boat. And that was good, right? That felt good. And it was a healthy kind of good. And so a few years later, after I had retired, Mike Wood, we'd sort of drifted apart. We'd bump into each other, regattas here and there. And he called me up one day and said, hey, I got an idea. And this, the catchphrase I always use is a Marine and a paratrooper walked into a bar, which is shocking to no one, and out came an idea, right? And so we came out of the bar, and I was like, and he had a very similar trajectory where sailing literally saved his life. And he said, and we tried, if it worked for us, man, it's got to work for other people. And now you have it. That is the Valhalla Sailing Project. We use the sport of sailing to get veterans on the water, to bring them together and give them a sense of camaraderie, a sense of community, and a sense of belonging to help them make that transition from service to civilian life.
Whether it's through shared experiences like MVP or shared passions like sailing, these stories remind us that community can be found in unexpected places, and those connections can be life-changing. Sometimes the strongest communities start with just one person who's in your corner. Joel Strasser and Garrett Smith shared how their friendship carried them through the challenges on the Amazing Race and beyond. Here's what they had to say about the power of having someone to lean on.
Top-tier teams are ones that can maintain, confidence under that stress. The people that don't let the stress get to them. And because of that, we knew going in that if you keep your composure, you just have a better chance with everything. And so being that Strasser had studied the show and planned out, okay, these people are the ones that typically win. This type of person is who usually wins the show. I mean, we knew going into it what we were going to do.
I remember when we were finalists for casting. And we made it to the final interview, and they asked us in that final interview, like, what is your strategy? How are you going to be successful on the show? And I said something to the effect of, we get along well and we work together well. And I found the secret to winning. And then Bertram, he's the one who created the show. He started the whole thing, and he's there at every episode, directing every episode. He was like, oh, you have, huh? Well, tell me, what is the secret to the show? And I told him, people who can get along and work together well and keep a positive and happy attitude do better than the people who don't. And he was like, oh, he kind of did figure it out, So.
and I mean, that's something that just because you might have seen us always positive and happy and relatively stress-free on the show, that's not to say that stress doesn't get to us, because it does. But I think it really helps to have somebody in your corner, to have a teammate that you can rely on. Maybe when I'm getting stressed out, he's going to crack a joke to bring those stress levels down, Maybe when he's stressing out, I'm, going to make fun of him and he'll laugh about it, And so you got to have somebody in your corner that you can rely on, that you just know, can help you through those stressful situations. I mean, I think a lot of that is just learned over time. A lot of times I think as humans, we have a hard time reaching out for help. A lot of times we might feel like, no, I need to figure this out on my own. I need to deal with this on my own. But I think you just have to build those relationships. I mean, you have to be willing to be vulnerable with people. There was a situation early on in our lives where when my daughter was born, the one that has special needs, she actually basically died in the womb and had to be revived. She received CPR for 4 minutes, and we're in the NICU for a month, and it was just such a horrible time in our lives. It was so difficult. But I had a flashback to Strasser and one of his daughters that went through a very similar experience when she was young, where he spent time in the NICU and he almost lost his daughter, and they had to do CPR and all that. And so I knew he was somebody I could reach out to. He had been through basically the same situation. He's somebody that knows what I'm feeling. He's somebody that knows what I'm going through. And so I can reach out to him and ask him for his advice. What did you do, or how did you get through it? And so you just have to find those people in your life that you can trust and can help you through those difficult times.
I think family is so important. Being surrounded by a good family, and by the way, no families are perfect. So whether it's your spouse, your kids, your siblings, your immediate family, or your extended family, I think every family has strengths and has drama, but you can receive so much goodness from having a good family unit. But then it goes beyond that. It goes to friends. Sometimes your friends are your family. And it goes beyond that too. The power of prayer for me is so huge. Being able to turn to my Father, my Heavenly Father, and speak to Him, and then receive direction from that. There's so many good sources of help when you need it, and another source that I've just recently decided to turn to, which I've never done before, is to talk to a counselor. It's funny because I think in my younger years, I used to think that talking to a therapist or a counselor or whatever was a show of weakness or something, that you couldn't take care of it yourself. And my wife, when I came home from filming The Amazing Race, I spent a lot of time thinking negatively about how it ended. And she would notice it when she would look at me. She could see that I was in my head, and she would tell me, she'd talk to me and stuff, and she'd say, "But you should see a therapist and talk to him." And I was like, "Yeah, I probably should." And I kind of left it at that. And but then after the final episode aired, I got a call from The Amazing Race has a counselor, and she works for the show, and she called me, and she wanted to just say she was checking in to see how I'm doing, and offer that The Amazing Race would pay for some sessions if I wanted to go get counseling. And I was like, all right, I'm not putting it off anymore. I'm going to do it. So I haven't started yet. It's actually happening next week. But I'm going to go take advantage of that, and I'm going to do it. And I'm actually looking forward to it. And it's not, I finally understand that it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. If you see a tool there that's available and you use that tool, you're making the right choice, and you're moving yourself in the right direction. So I'm actually super excited about it.
Yeah, I like what he said about family, and the other thing is families come in all shapes and sizes. It might not be blood family, it might be a military family, it might be just friends that you can treat each other as family. And so you got to get those family relationships, those bonds, anywhere you can. It doesn't matter where it comes from.
Friendship is a cornerstone of community. Whether it's a lifelong friend or someone you meet along the way, having someone who truly sees you and supports you can make all the difference. Finally, let's address something that often holds people back from finding their community: the fear of asking for help. Nicole Malachowski shared a powerful message about why it's okay and necessary to reach out when you're struggling. Here's her story.
During training season, which is about 3 months long, we fly twice a day. It's pretty intense. I was probably halfway through training season when we were learning a new maneuver that I literally could not figure out. It's called the trail to diamond roll. Actually, the Thunderbirds don't fly it anymore, so this is a bit of a throwback conversation here. But no matter how many times we practiced it, I couldn't figure it out. And it hurt because I was at the height of my career, supposedly the height of my skill sets. I was considered an experienced fighter pilot. I'm with these 5 amazing, pilots that were also selected for the team. They all had it figured out, and I couldn't figure it out. So we couldn't move on with the training syllabus. And I remember like how bad I felt. And, my ego was taking a huge hit. And also, let's not forget, I could read the headlines now, first woman Thunderbird pilot fails out of training. So there was that pressure that was also, on me at the time. And I remember one day in debrief, taking a deep breath, exhaling, and saying the 3 hardest words of my career, which were, I need help. And I distinctly remember that being a red flag for everyone, because in a good way, right? Because as fighter pilots, we kind of have that macho mask. We don't need help. We're self-sustaining. We'll get through it. I'll just grit it out and figure it out on my own. And in what we were doing, that just wasn't the right answer. And so when I said I need help, it was freeing for me. But it was also, I think, the right thing, the right signal that my team needed to hear, like, hey, she's not going to mentally get past this. Let's put in the work. And what happened was the team stopped. And for like 2 days straight, we did that maneuver hundreds of times until I figured it out. And they helped me not from a place of judgment or shame, but from a place of caring and compassion as a teammate, and from a place of shared commitment. And I distinctly remember asking for help, like outwardly for the first time. And it would serve me well for the remainder of my career when I needed help, say, as a fighter squadron commander, or when I needed help when I was working at the White House. And most importantly, when I needed help dealing with my very life-changing medical issues that would come out of nowhere. So I learned the power of asking for help. Asking for help is it's a skill set, and it's one that needs to be practiced and consistently, nurtured. Sometimes society says if you ask for help that you're showing that you're weak, or that you're not all in, or that you're not fully committed, or, you're not up to the standards of everybody else. And I think you and I definitely know that the opposite of that is true. And when I became a fighter squadron commander, I remember talking to the guys about this. Like, I need us to ask for help. We were overworked, under-resourced, undermanned. It was sequestration. All that was going on. I said, if you need help, you got to stop and you ask for help. And again, it goes a little bit against that fighter pilot mask, right, that we all wear. And the way that I got them kind of to understand or to buy into this asking for help or being vulnerable is really what we're talking about, is I told them, remember, when you ask for help, it's not just about you, right? When you ask for help, you're enabling and empowering all those people around you, your teammates, your colleagues, the people that work for you, to do the same. So if you can't do it just purely for yourself, do it for other people. And that was a way to kind of shift the mindset on the power of asking for help.
Nicole's story reminds us that none of us are meant to face life's challenges alone. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a step toward healing and connection. Whether it's a peer-led group, a shared passion, or a close friendship, community has the power to transform lives. Take a moment to think about where you can find or build your tribe. And if you're looking for a place to start, join our virtual walking group on the Strava app. It's a space where you can log your daily mile, connect with like-minded people, and find encouragement along the way. Start small, reach out, and remember, connection is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself and others. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need it, and keep building communities of hope and healing together. And as always, you can catch the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast on Reefs Across America Radio, available on platforms like iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and the TuneIn app.